It's DeWoofy here with Vibe Check, and I have decided on the name. The name of the podcast is Vibe Check, which I'm very excited about. All about finding tribes, communicating with them, and building them. Definitely a Farcaster coded podcast, and I couldn't be more excited to have. You want to go by Colin or Kojo? What's?
Let's go Kojo now that we're in the Farcaster world.
Okay, cool. I'm here with Kojo, and I couldn't be more excited. I saw you actually like this the first time at FarCon, I think, when you had to dial in. But we've talked a lot since then, and I think when I think about people who've honestly been extremely successful at sort of building tribes and building vibes on Farcaster, you are in sort of a rarefied air there. So I will let you introduce yourself briefly, just for people who don't know. Kojo, who are you?
Cool. Briefly, yeah. So I'm Kojo Dadi, founder of Ponder, along with Ben Adamski, and we've got Matthew Morick on the team as well. Before this, I founded a company called Freeport while I was on Farcaster as well. There we sold fractional fine art. So we actually had a collection of Warhols. We went through SEC approval, did all that stuff. That's a whole story we can get into later. But before that, I was at Apple. So I was in product marketing at Apple on the Apple Pay team for 2.5 years. And before that, partner marketing. And then I was at American Express before that. So I have kind of a corporate finance background, payments background, marketing background. But I have always been kind of a diehard crypto fanatic since 2013 when I first used it to do semi-legal things on the internet.
Nice. Well, we won't dig into that too much. That's awesome. You're not the only person. I feel like I've run into a lot of people on Farcaster who have these sort of like, I wouldn't call them hyper traditional, but like it did exceedingly well in their like former lives, so to speak, and then decided like, what was it for you? I couldn't take it anymore.
Could have done better, but no, it was. So it's really fun to grow in your career and to have a ladder, right? When you're at Amex, the ladder is really clear. Do these things, you'll get promoted, you'll do X, Y, Z. Apple's a little more difficult, right? So it's like a higher degree it's a much faster learning curve and much stronger responsibility very, very early. But then you get to a point where you start to think, maybe you get a little bit cocky and you're like, I can do pretty much anything, because if I can be successful here at Apple and manage, a $5 million a year marketing program for Apple, then I can probably go do anything. So there's a little bit of like self-confidence that grows over time in those places. But also there's an opportunistic element where it's like, do I have something valuable else to go do, right? And like, I'm not just going to quit my job at Apple if there's not something to do. And for me, we actually had a pretty good opportunity arise when, a close family friend said, I've got a bunch of Warhols. Can you put them on chain? And I said, you know what, that's the kind of opportunity that I'm going to go after. So it was a mix of things, gaining confidence in the career and myself and having a good opportunity.
Yeah, I love that. I think you're probably not alone in that sort of journey where it's always sort of random, it feels like at times, but then once you're in it, it couldn't have happened any other way. Okay, cool. So that's the background. I really want to dig into Ponder because I'm honestly a little obsessed. I've been trending. I'm pretty proud of
it. Crushing. Your polls are absolutely crushing.
This is something that we talked about before, where I'm looking for validation that my follower count is not indicative of my follower strength or something like that. I got to get like KBC or someone to do an analysis so that I can prove that out more dynamically. But Ponder was really interesting to me, I think, because for a couple of reasons. First, it's just like people love polls, right? People love like the only thing people love more than like answering questions is like finding out if other people think the same way they do. And this is like I think a lot of what like Reddit like kind of rallies around as well. That's why upvoting works, and I think most of the value of Reddit comes out of those types of things. So it's always felt like a missing feature to me. But I think one thing that has been interesting to watch you guys do is like try to see what that means in like a native Web3 format, right? So like this is something where I feel like a lot of people can actually learn from you guys, where you start from sort of this first principles idea, right, of like what polls are and what make them interesting and what make them important, but then taking it a step further and not just being like, okay, and like you get tokens at the answer, right? Not that didn't exist, but like there's more to it than that, right? So if you want to just take me through what Ponder is, how you guys came up with the idea, and then we can dig into sort of like what's worked and what hasn't. I think that'll probably be super interesting for people to hear about.
Okay. That all makes sense. I think what it is, so if you look back historically, there are a bunch of companies or platforms that do Q&A. Quora is a good example. You just mentioned Reddit. That's a good example. There's something about humans telling other humans their perspective on things that's really valuable and that is intriguing to us. It's like it's storytelling, right? Like, yeah, tell me what happens next in the story in this person's specific point of view. So you can do that from a qualitative or a quantitative perspective, which is what we've done to date. Although we had a little qualitative earlier on until frames came along and kind of forced us to be fully quant. But we'll get back into qualitative as well. And what we want to do is sort of emerge that concept of I want to understand what other people think, especially what other capable people think who are building similar things as me or who are going through a similar sort of phase in life as me, or who have other similarities. So how can I understand what's going on the cutting edge of crypto as quickly as possible from the people that I respect, right? And that's kind of like the emotion that Ponder emerges from is if you could just have some master dashboard that showed you exactly what all populations on Earth thought about any topic at any point in time, you'd find that really useful, right? Now, we're not there, but it's that same sort of emotion. So that's what we're trying to bring to life. We started Ponder, though, as just Surveycaster. So back in the olden days, and I think you were there for our first Unlonely live cast when we had the Surveyor NFT drop. That was actually a massive moment because A, we got a little bit of funding that convinced us we could do this, but B, it showed us that we could develop a tribe by utilizing some sort of live video and engaging with the platform in the native ways that other people on the platform sort of wanted to be engaged with. But anyways, we launched those NFTs. We had a lot of excitement, and we just had this survey bot at that point in time. The survey bot was just sending out questions that we thought would be super relevant to builders, right? The very first question was about Purple. And Purple used to be the name of both an app and the Purple Public Goods DAO. And we had a vote. We had a public vote as to who should change their name. And it ended up being the app that should change their name. So Purple Public Goods stayed the Purple that we know and love. But that was the very first survey that we sent out. And then we sent out others along the lines of like, hey, how should you authenticate in your Web3 app? Should you implement Twitter and Google sign in as well as sign in with Ethereum? Things like that, so that we could all just get on the same page together and understand how we should be building. And it's since evolved from there into something that's much more sort of comprehensive and I guess empowered by the new tools that the Farcaster team is developing.
Yeah, I mean, I do remember Surveycaster. I remember the bot. It's funny how emergent is a really good word. Actually, I like it just as much, if not more, than evolved, because we sort of have. I've been talking with this about a lot of people, and I think this is going to keep coming up. It's like sort of how do you evolve with the protocol, right? Like the ground is shifting underneath you, and that's very like normally you do that inside of a startup, right? Like at least I've been a part of, and I know a lot of other people have part of, seed, Series A sort of startups where you're in there, you're all working together, everything's shifting around you, but you're all working together, right? And I'm sure it's happened in other sort of like blockchain ecosystems where like, there's forks and upgrades and things of that nature. But generally speaking, I think this is sort of a unique moment where Dan and V have sort of created this sandbox effectively, right? And we're all sort of like building and like figuring things out inside. But at the same time, they have the sandbox. They're like chucking new toys in every Friday.
I'm just going to shake it up a little bit today. Yeah,
exactly. Everyone's there like building their sandcastle, and then they're like, "Now you guys have water to play with too." So, oh, geez, okay, time to like build a moat, right? So there's all these different things happening, and I think you guys have navigated it really well. But yeah, the bot was great, and I guess my point here is that like it's been interesting to see you guys like those first surveys really were for like they felt like they were for all of Farcaster. Because the community was so like small.
12, 13 people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And now I ask about sauce vehicles, and I think I hit like 100 on that. People had really strong feelings about that.
It's an important topic.
I think so. Maybe we'll see. A serious question for sure. But tell me more about some stuff that you guys did that didn't work, because I've been talking to a lot of folks, and I feel like we always say like ship in public, build in public, whatever. And like, it's just, everyone keeps yelling it because the fear is so innate, right? Like the fear of failure, the fear of rejection is so innate. I want to bring some of that to light because you guys have
failed a lot. Yeah.
I'll share let me actually, before that, I'll share my first misstep because you're talking about the Unlonely stream. My first misstep was minting only one of those surveyors at a time and continuously getting rugged with shitty cards. And I think I paid like, I don't know, whatever. I paid like $50, $60 for cars and like $30, $40 in gas. I was like, You know what? I
Yeah.
deserve it. I should have just believed in the product. I love Ben and Colin.
If
I would have gone
it makes
in.
you feel better though, Dan Romero popped in and this is the most he's engaged with our product, by the way. But he popped in and he minted one and he got the worst card in the deck, like
I
stats
remember that.
one, most generic possible card, and then bounced. And we're like, man, that's not a great impression on the founder of Farcaster. But that's okay. That's okay. They
That's
sold out.
fine. No, I remember you guys like Ben was like shocked. People were getting these crazy rare pulls, like one of thousands, like in a
Yeah.
row, different
Yeah,
people.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
hopped in,
It's
nothing. Dan
irrelevant.
hopped in, nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not
So
everyone made it out alive. Yeah.
it's all good.
I still, but to your point, like what's gone wrong? We had
Yeah.
this, I especially had this like childish enthusiasm around even those cards. So, you get excited about new capabilities that come up. And I just got a notification here. I don't know if you got that also.
Was it from me or from you?
You run out of free disk space. I think it's from Zencaster. But anyways, let me start that over.
Yeah, you're good. We can chop it up.
So anyways, I had this childish sense of wonder around just creating NFTs. So because I ruptured my Achilles like an absolute idiot playing pickleball, I had a lot of free time just sitting in front of my computer, not going out anywhere. So I developed this Surveyor NFT sort of passes as a way into the Surveycaster ecosystem at the time, but we didn't have any plans for like creating a frame, right? That will allow people to create polls. At that point in time, I thought we would have a card game in association with the surveys, and the quality of your cards and your stats would actually impact the amount of rewards that you got for your answers, like all kinds of stuff that you want to leave the white space open for to like be imaginative. But in retrospect, you're also like, what was my strategy? Like, that's ridiculous. But you keep sort of navigating and seeing what works. We did a lot of other things. We just retired the the Ponder tokens as an example, and we retired the ability to have us submit surveys on your behalf through the @Ponder handle. We liked the idea theoretically, but then in practice, we saw only a few people were using it, and they did love it, I will say, but only a few people were using it. And it like added endless complication to our back end. We had to make sure that we were reviewing people's surveys. We'd have to say no. Like they would give us money, 750 Ponder tokens to send their survey out. But then if the survey wasn't up to the quality that we want it to be up to, we'd have to say, well, sorry, we're not going to send this out, even though you've already sent us the tokens. So we had to like rescind that capability. And then we've just simplified and simplified and simplified and tried to identify the things that people want to do repeatedly over time. And that's kind of where we're at now, with a lot of new stuff on the horizon, though, I will say.
Yeah, we'll definitely dig into that because I think what's coming is going to be super interesting as well. We've talked a little bit about it, but we'd love to drop some alpha on the podcast. Got to give the users their value, the viewers.
Right now. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. The game's super interesting. I didn't even know you guys were heading that direction. It's funny how these things always happen, though, because it's always the stuff that you think you kind of don't think much of. At least me personally, it's always the things that are sort of orthogonal that like end up being worth a lot, and like that's by definition, right? Like the people who go out there and collect things that they know are going to be valuable while everyone else is doing it too, and that's where like the OG NFT is like you just had to be active, right? So I do secretly hope that Ponder takes off and my 3 shitty cards end up being part of my retirement fund.
By the way, do you still have your OG NFT?
I do, yeah, I do.
Okay,
do you not? Did you dump it?
No, I still have mine.
Yeah, I think I threw out a random number. Like, if it's $1 million, it would be hard to keep. But until then, it's like it's on-chain identity, right? Like you never know what it's going to be useful for. It's proof of where I've been. It's so deeply tied to everything that I do.
Right.
I feel like a lot of people feel that way.
Yeah, I fully agree. That's my stance. I think that's Ben's stance on it too. But as far as the cards go, by the way, the surveyor cards, 100% in the back of my head, I'm like scheming. I'm scheming for a way to get these cards to become either useful or valuable over time. And like, as long as we survive long enough and we find product market fit, I'm going to make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, it happens regardless, right? That's the funny thing, right? Like, useful is great. I'm all for utility. I really am. I love those things. But like, the fact of the matter was like, the most useless token of all time. It's like an AI generated thing from Dan that just says OG on it, sparked a plethora of memes.
Because it's the meaning. It's the meaning.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And you know, the other interesting thing about that, and I will dovetail this into another question, is like I joined like I don't know 6 or 7 like OG gated NFT group chats just because like people kept inviting me. I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. It's a new group chat feature. We'll look it out, and you can just you can almost smell the people who bought them
Oh
aftermarket.
yeah. Oh yeah,
Like
100%. I'm in one of
you
those
can't
groups
really,
and I can smell. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, you can't really fake it, right? And that's one of the interesting things about these things. Like you can buy it, and like maybe for token gating purposes, it'll get you access somewhere, but like you can't really fake your way into these things, which I think is something really interesting about this the social proof that's happening now. Whereas, you know, there was a lot less of that. Like I feel like for board apes and punks, at least during the NFT craze, the whole point was you could like buy yourself in. Like they loved that like Justin Bieber had one. It was like a marketing gimmick, and like I don't think any of us would care if Justin Bieber ever bought a Farcaster OG. It'd be funny,
Yeah.
but like
Yeah.
it wouldn't change my stance on the project one way or another.
Yeah. Yeah. I fully agree with that. Um, I can't think of any celebrity who's buying an OG NFT would sort of impact me. There might be one. I don't know.
I don't know. Elon would be interesting. Um, just as like a signaling thing. I'm sure there's some out there who are like, you know, maybe not pop culture celebrities, but like celebrities to crypto nerds, right?
Yeah.
Like if
Like
Vitalik got
Vitalik
one.
should own one. Vitalik should
Yeah,
own. I wonder if Vitalik got. No, he probably wasn't active then.
I don't know if he
I
was
was
out there.
telling to your point though about like being part of the community over a long period of time. I was telling Fun Welter.eth or Fun.eth
Yeah,
Welter uh, that one of the things that he should create is a map of people's activity over the past year and a half, so you can see who was actually active during the period. Because there were some people that like just sort of got invited, right? Like you're on
yeah,
Farcaster really early, but then you never used it, and then it became popular. So okay, now I'm going to sort of recycle my efforts and come back in.
yes.
I think that a map of people, just to shame the people who did that, a map of people that were active during that period of time that was like the struggle
Yeah.
would be super useful.
I think it'd be really funny. There was definitely some people without naming names who sort of told on themselves when they rejoined during the madness and like, whoa, you have a very low FID and do not understand any of the cultural norms. That is super interesting, actually. I mean, no offense to anyone. I mean, you know, everyone misses something and like people have their own incentives. This is not like
Sure.
shame, but it is definitely like, oh, you are posturing as something that you're not right now. And to me, that's supremely uninteresting.
Yeah,
But other
I
folks, I
think it's
get it.
funny to watch the people come in now from Twitter too that are like they're trying to bring their same strategies in, and you're just
Yeah.
like, what are you doing? And again,
Yeah.
I don't want to name names here, but there's some folks that I think I don't know. G Money is one of them. So like he came in and he started bringing in like giveaways and things that are like, oh, do X, Y, or Z and get this, and it's just like, oh no, don't do that in here. And by the way, I think G Money is awesome, super legit, but it's just like you just see that strategy falls flat against. And I love that Farcaster is able to push back against that. Like the
It's
culture is so strong that it
yeah. So
can.
the alternative title I had for this podcast is actually positive fragmentation, which is sort of the idea that like saying no to people, whether it be through product or through tribes or through communication, like that is a really important part of sort of the human experience, right? Or like when you study cults or intentional communities, as I like to call them, like the ability to exit is really important, right? Like if you're literally
Yeah.
jailing people and keeping people there, you can never have that sort of deep seated belief that you want to be there. You need to sort of let people at least think that they can leave, right? Like I think I can leave Farcaster. I think Dan knows I can't at this point. Like I'm fully locked in. But like that's how you sort of create those things. And I think it's yeah, it's interesting to watch, especially because some of those tactics are working with a new subset of audience as well. Like there is serious fragmentation going on, but when push comes to shove, and this is actually what I want to talk to you a little bit about next, about like getting traction for something other than a giveaway, for getting someone to do something without, you know, degen rewards, let's say. I'm not saying those things don't have their place and they have, you know, specific audiences and use cases. They definitely do. But I think a lot of people sort of miss the forest for the trees, so to speak, where they say, you know, I want to get likes or I want to get recasts and I'm willing to pay for them. Ultimately, you're doing yourself a disservice because you're going to ruin your product feedback. You're going to get an audience that you don't even really want. Have you thought
Yeah.
about that at all with Ponder? Have you thought about, have
Yeah.
you read into any of it? Tell me.
Um, I think it's really important to be, and everyone says this, so I even hesitate to say it, but like adding value rather than extracting value right now in the life cycle of Farcaster. I think um, you can sort of pay for engagement with DGen. You can gain followership by being genuine as a creator, which is, by the way, what I think you should be doing, which you seem to be to some degree. But
We're trying.
but but like you can add value as a creator because you're talking about content that's relevant to people and you're consistently showing up and doing that. And I think that's adding value. You can be infrastructurally interesting. You can be like a Nanar, right? Or you can be like like Frames.js or Frog or any of those that's useful to other builders. You don't see a lot of folks that are just sort of building their brand on Farcaster. I guess Paragraph is a good example, but Paragraph is also sort of like adding their infrastructure layer. But folks that are just building their brand over time for a product that isn't like distinctly Farcaster related. And by that, I mean, like we are Farcaster related, but long term, the Ponder vision is going to be that we can deliver these types of surveys anywhere, right? Obviously,
Yeah.
we're like the children of Farcaster, so we're not going anywhere anytime soon. But there's this sort of greater vision of being able to ingest human insights in real time from everywhere, forever. Anyways, when you come around to sort of identifying how you build a followership, I think you need to figure out how you offer value to other people. I think the way that we offer value right now is we make it really easy to make polls, and we manage all the sort of back end infrastructure. And then we allow you to go sort of review those polls over time. And we're going to keep making that dashboard more valuable so that when you're using Ponder, you just feel like you have superpowers effectively, right? Like that's the goal for us to add value. And then you also just have to show up over time. Like the equation, you can be really, really good and really punchy for a short amount of time. And you can make really punchy frames that get 1,500 recasts, like a lot of them did when frames first came out. But there is a time element that is like really, really critical. Like showing up consistently and doing something consistently over time is hard. And that's something that like can differentiate you from other brands. We send a survey out every day. We've sent out like a survey every day for over a year. Maybe we've missed 15 or something like that, but like a lot of days. So anyways, yeah, showing up and adding value. If I had to just simplify my long-winded description.
No, I feel like you're speaking directly to me about the podcast. like I gotta like I'm trying to get like a backlog of episodes going.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah,
this is exactly what I'm trying to do. I agree with you 100%. Like especially with the adding value thing, I think a lot of this is very ephemeral, and we're gonna see it. I don't think anyone thinks Dow goes straight up, right? Like there's going to be dips and things, and whether your audience sticks around and whether you and like whether that's for Farcast or like for you specifically, right? Because you guys obviously, like you were just saying, even if people just like love Ponder and then end up hanging out on the website because they're like, I like Twitter better than Farcaster, but I do like Ponder. I'm going to stick around there. That's still a success for you guys, right? That's still you built your own audience and tribe.
we've yet to find that customer, but yes, that's totally that'd be great.
Well, it's early though, right? Like we've talked about this, and I've said this before. I think using Warpcast as the distribution is like it's the go-to right now, and it's really silly
For
to
sure.
fight Dan on that because he's already said he wants DAO on the protocol. The best way to do that is to get people on the DApp, and if you think you're fighting a unicorn with 10 or 15 of the best engineers in the world for trying to make a product that gathers attention, when you can just it's not really a vampire attack, but hopefully you're adding like if you do it correctly, you're also adding value to the
Yeah.
app, right? And like whether that is long term, TBD, right? Like whether like you can build an entire like business just being inside of Warpcast, TBD. But in the short term, I struggle to find any other go to market that makes sense if you're targeting Farcaster users.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's entirely accurate. One of the problems I think some people run into is they think of, oh, it's a Farcaster client that I have to build. And if I have to
Yeah.
build a Farcaster client to make it my own, then I need to have feature parity with Warpcast. And then like you're wrecked. From that point on, you're wrecked because you're not going to have feature parity with Warpcast, right? Like I think some people are brilliant. Like Waj is brilliant. Like I forget who did Flink, but like super smart. And I think like they will take some market share. Supercast clearly has some market share because they're doing things differently. But I think people need to disabuse themselves of this concept that it has to be a Farcaster client or that a client needs to look anything like Farcaster. Like you can use that information, rework it into your own experience and just have the sort of social graph or the social network on the back end be Farcaster, and it can like host the comments almost, which is like a little tip of the hat towards something that we'll be doing in the future. But it can like host the conversation. You don't have to create another competitive client, right? There's other ways to utilize the information that exists on hubs that looks nothing like a client, that becomes much more useful and is its own standalone product. That's at least part of the thesis of Ponder.
No, I think that should be every smart person's thesis right now. You should be finding ways to leverage maybe probably the most incredible social graph since what, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok maybe, but is TikTok even as, I feel like TikTok's not even really a social graph as much as it is like an algorithm, right? Like it's sort of using it to feed you content. Like in terms of like actual social graphs that like that have a lot of interaction, it does feel like, I don't know, since Facebook probably is what I would say is what
Totally.
seems like
And
it's
with
going to
payments baked in too, which is just like
yeah.
mind blowing, right? I don't think we've even gotten close to exploring what that can power.
No, there's gonna be. I mean, we're still definitely serving the Cambrian moment. I'd say we're out of sort of the primordial ooze, but we're definitely not at anything sort of full fledged yet. I don't think even Dan or V would sort of claim PMF. I'll claim it for them. I think this counts as PMF.
Well, 100K and Dan has to start dancing for us, right?
Yeah,
100K
yeah.
down. Like
At Farcon, yeah, he's getting
close.
real close.
Honestly, that might be the time. That might be where the axis correlates, the dancing / QDAO axis.
Yeah, that'll definitely be a market top, but it's fine.
That's what I'll
I
call
feel
my
like
NFT.
Yeah, I feel like founders dancing traditionally, especially in crypto, but broadly speaking, whether it's like Balmer or like the Dogecoin guy, like
Yeah,
founders dancing just like usually isn't a great time to be
that is
thinking
true.
that you're at the
That is
bottom.
true.
But it'll be funny, and I think the top's got to come either way. Um, we're running a little low on time. I want to make sure we get in what's going on with Ponder, what's new, what's exciting, plug
Yeah,
it. What do you want people to try out? Say some things
cool.
about actionable items.
Yeah, so top level, the cool thing to do with Ponder right now is to just make a poll. And you can make a poll at weponder.io on our website, or if you're extremely lazy or efficient, depending on how you look at it, you can just go to the Ponder channel, and we have pinned at the top of that channel the poll creating frame. So you basically just go to the Ponder channel. It'll be right there at the very top pinned. You can type in your question, type in your survey results, type in the answer options. And then literally right from that frame, you click launch and it will launch the poll for you. So you never actually have to even leave the Warpcast app to launch your poll. And then we'll do all this sort of data aggregation. People vote in real time. And then forever after, you'll be able to go back and look at your poll on the dashboard on our website. And there are a lot of fun features that are coming to that dashboard. So right now you can just see what the general population, we like to call them Gen Pop, what they voted for on your poll. But we're also going to allow people to sort of filter by whether or not they have a power badge or what their FID is or their follower count, other things like that. Longer term, we'll implement filtering by like NFTs. Not that long term, but like after we'll have filtering by NFTs so that you can start to actually look at the data and gain useful insights from it, right? And say like, okay, people that are active power users actually have a different viewpoint than the general population. And they gave me this feedback about whether or not I should start a podcast or a YouTube channel, right? So anyways, that's what I would recommend people do is go make polls and then utilize the dashboard, the new dashboard that we have. Coming up soon, again, I just mentioned the dashboard is going to expand. We're also looking into some qualitative stuff that I don't think we can quite release at the moment. But people should know that we're in Seed Club, and the Seed Club demo day is going to be June 20th. So by June 20th, we'll need to have an experience that's pretty compelling. I think we have an experience that's compelling as it stands right now, but even more compelling by then. So that's the next kind of like critical date for Ponder. And then after that, there are a lot of things that are much more Web3 in the works, I'll say, but not that we can announce currently.
Awesome. No, I'm super pumped about it. I really want to see you guys succeed. I will say, I actually I was going to message you. I totally forgot to, but I'll throw it here at the end of the comments. Just as like a funny anecdote from my own experience using Ponder, which I made that poll about the ideal sauce vehicle. I was sitting there. I had fries earlier that day, and I was having a rice dish later. I was like, and I was having trouble deciding. I think ultimately I went with rice, but I wanted what's the best way to get a sauce or a dipping sauce, something to
Yep.
from plate to
Yep.
digestive system.
Yep.
And rice took an early lead, but I was really shocked to see that when Asia woke up, fries and potatoes caught up pretty dramatically. So I think there's one of these like you don't need to build that for me specifically, but I had not thought about the response timing as being sort of an interesting metric to watch how things sort of how people in different time zones react, and that's all part of that social graph that Farcaster has that like Quora could never, right? Like,
Totally, totally, totally. The other thing to keep in mind is when you post things matters a lot on Farcaster too, just like other social networks. Like
yeah,
posting at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time is probably a good idea as a general rule, just because there's a lot of activity between like 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. But yeah, the polls are open for 48 hours. So we try to take everyone globally into account. Dude, it's wild. When we look at like the countries that people are visiting our website from, it's like, it's not just US, UK, Australia. It's like Indonesia, Turkey, Nigeria, Kenya. It's like it's super, super global, which is awesome. And all of our traffic is coming from Farcaster. So it's really cool to see the product propagating in that way. Japan now also is getting
yeah,
pretty big.
yeah. All the big crypto places, man. They're out here trying to answer surveys. So all right, I don't want to keep you longer than scheduled. I mean, I could talk to you all day, but kojo.eth, make sure you go follow him. I'm DeWoofy. Make sure to follow me too. WePonder.io is the website to go try out the polls or slash ponder for the channel on Warpcast. And then, yeah, there's the alpha for everyone who made it to the very end. We buried the lead. Post at 11 a.m. Eastern if you want engagement. That's if you don't
Or
get
don't.
anything
We'll take that slot. Yeah, it's fine.
right. No, I think that's you want everyone on there. Like you want to ride your wave, right? Like people are like, oh, the poll comes out at 11 a.m. Eastern. What else is happening on Farcaster? Oh, David casted something too. I
The
should
Wolfie
probably.
dropped his podcast. It's
Yeah,
perfect.
exactly. Also, I'll have to make a poll for the podcast. I have to say, did you like this, or or not, or something like that. I should start getting feedback with this as well. But
Perfect.
dude,
Yeah.
appreciate the time so much, man. Really deeply. Wish you nothing but the best. Any sign offs, or you good?
No, we're good. Glad you're doing this.
Yeah,
And keep it up yourself.
appreciate it, man. All right,
Cool.
later.